The first thing that comes to mind when we think about ensh tendencies in the cybersecurity field is, well, AI actually. But the second one is all of those freaking pop-ups saying things like, this website uses cookies, you agree to our terms and conditions. And the famous one that goes like, we value your privacy. If I hadn't been triggered by the most recent, I'll put it this way, additions to the messaging applications, this, without doubt, would be the very first video in the ensh series, so that it leads the procession, so to say. As a cybersecurity researcher, I can stand the hypocrisy data privacy comes with. It shouldn't be that hard to act right. You have to read a ton of nonsense on every page you visit, just so that you do not accept anything you do not want to accept. It's called transparency whilst it's filled with, well, fillers and vague legal definitions, which deliberately puts you into a weak position. It's cool to have a choice and all. You must have a choice, but you also must be provided with a clear description of what your choice means. Otherwise, it just makes your choice meaningless, since it basically was predetermined by those who pretend to give you one. On the other hand, Meta literally makes you pay for a monthly subscription if you do not want to share your data. Even though data privacy is often regulated by law, such as the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, businesses do not get punished enough to follow these regulations in a decent manner. Yes, don't get me wrong, they do get fines, and sometimes these fines are substantial enough to cause financial loss to a certain degree. But in order to punish someone for their violation of regulations, you first have to uncover this violation and to prove it. There must be a public response to it that would be loud enough for authorities to hear. It's just a tough job to verify every single claim until it's too big of an issue. And the payouts do not even go to the affected data subjects, but to national treasuries instead. Also, have you heard that the literal application of the White House just strips all of these pop-ups from their web view with a custom JavaScript code injected into pages? Now you know, some applications take away your choice altogether. So it's no secret that businesses proceed to collect your data nevertheless, since businesses are all about money and effective ways to get them. It's actually quite profitable to collect data. Sure, some data they collect does make your experience better. Take functional cookies, for example. They store your settings, such as your preferred language and color scheme, or they store, say, shopping cart contents or the latest entries in your search history on the website, so that you don't lose it when your session expires or when you accidentally close the tab. It just makes sense to store bits of information like that on the client side if it doesn't include any sensitive information that could be hijacked. I could argue on shopping cart contents and search history entries though, but still. But almost all other data is almost diabolical to collect in its nature. They calculate and store fingerprints of your browser, look for traces of sessions and cookies that belong to other websites, particularly the ones that belong to big social media platforms. They love this. All to get even richer. In order to successfully catch your attention or advertise you something, websites you visit need to know you. And they can do that from the very first site. If you agree to share your data, most websites will know you by analyzing your digital fingerprint and relying on your behavior observed by other websites. Which platforms have you signed up already? Which content you like? What topics engage you the most? What your latest search entries are? What your usual and your current locations are? What your latest purchases are? And so on. It even goes as far as online stores scaling prices based on your identity. Users who order the same products from the same store to be delivered to the very same address often get different totals, even with new accounts, since these stores already have all the information they need to charge you accordingly. And things somehow proceed to get even worse Even though people take an active interest in their rights and it's not that easy for businesses to get away with violations anymore, they still find a way to do so despite possible financial and reputational losses. I love the research with the codename LocalMess, done last year by a group of experts you should see on the screen right now. They uncovered a technique Meta and Yandex had been using to covertly gather user data for God knows how long until this research was published. Applications of both Meta and Yandex opened up local ports on Android phones for listening to daily mice users visiting websites which have Meta's or Yandex's available scripts embedded into them. As for Meta, their Facebook and Instagram applications created a background service to listen on fixed local ports of the device, and when users wanders around on the internet and stumbles across a website with the Meta pixel integrated into them, the pixel script sends a special FBP cookie to these ports so that they end up in Facebook or Instagram, and your session on the website gets linked to your identity on Meta's platforms. This FBP cookie is a browser fingerprint, which is present on at least a quarter of the top million websites, I believe. It is a first-party cookie, not a third-party, with a lifespan of 90 days only. However, as you can see, Meta once found a way to link these cookies, no matter the domain. As for Yandex, the flow was almost the same, except it's obviously not Facebook or Instagram now, but their native applications such as Yandex Go or Yandex Maps, and not the Meta pixel, but the Yandex metric script. Their script received obfuscated parameters from the service, sent them to local ports of the device over HTTP or HTTPS. The Yandex's SDK in the app received these parameters and responded to them, responded to the metric script with encrypted device identifiers. And finally, the metric script notified service on obfuscated parameters being successfully linked to certain device identifiers. Meta did all of this via WebRTC rather than HTTP. They did use HTTP for a short period of time, but eventually switched to WebRTC. What's extra fun is that Yandex's scenario might be even worse than it appeared to be at the first glance, since they made every single website with the Yandex metric script in it make additional HTTP requests to localhost, which essentially means any other application on the phone could monitor these requests too. Again, thank God, and of course the researchers who did the research and made it public, both Meta and Yandex do not practice whatever this is no more. Now we're left to find out what they are doing instead. As for the recent findings, just a couple of weeks ago, the Citizen Lab team, whom I've mentioned in a previous video on backdoors in everyday apps, uncovered a platform called Webloc. This platform lets those who have access to it retrieve behavior patterns and geolocation data which belongs to millions of internet users. 500 million phones as stated. There are fewer people in the entire United States. All of this data came primarily from RTB-based and SDK-based data sources, as they call them. So basically from ad auctions and, yes, mobile applications, and included mobile advertising identifiers, coordinates based on IP addresses, GPS, and Wi-Fi data, and sometimes also personal details or devices metadata. Again, they've got all of the data thanks to vendors selling data they collect from their users with third-party software embedded into all kinds of mobile applications. No surprise, Webloc was proven to be actively used by governments of several countries. All of that thanks to absolutely no data privacy, despite Android permissions, Apple's app tracking transparency, and reject all buttons. Unfortunately, Webloc is just a single case out of tons of similar ones, but this research is a much needed reminder either way. That's it. It's nice to have a DNS blocker, by the way, as, for example, PewDiePie mentioned in his Fixing YouTube video. He was right, just saying. Name is Elizabeth, by the way. It was nice having you here with me today. Thank you very much for coming. Stay safe. Bye.